Lately, there are moments that catch me off guard. I'll be in the middle of a sentence and suddenly the word I want just isn't there. It's not gone forever. It usually comes back later when it's no longer useful. But in that moment, there's a pause, a gap, and I feel it. I'll set something down, my glasses, my keys, a note I meant to keep. And minutes later, I'm searching for it like I've never seen it before. Sometimes I read a paragraph and realize I have to slow down, read it again, let it settle. What unsettles me isn't that it happens, it's that it happens more often than it used to. And maybe that's why I've started leaning so heavily on my calendar and my task list. I use my Google Calendar religiously now. Appointments, reminders, small obligations, everything goes in there. Not because I'm failing, but because I don't want to carry it all in my head anymore. I unload things from my mind and put them somewhere reliable, then check them off as I go. There's something grounding about that, something steady. Most mornings are quiet now, coffee cooling on the counter, light coming in through the window a little slower than it used to. I check the day ahead, not because it's packed, but because it gives the day shape. Without that shape, the hours can blur. With it, I know where I'm headed, even if it's just from one small task to the next. Still, there are days it scares me. Days it makes me feel less capable, less sharp, like I'm not functioning the way I once did. There's a quiet grief in that, one we don't talk about much. The grief of realizing your mind doesn't move the way it used to, and the fear that maybe you're slipping, that maybe this is how it starts. I've had moments where I wondered if I was breaking or becoming less than who I was. There's a story often told about an elderly woman, well into her later years, who still does a crossword puzzle every morning. Not the easy ones, the hard ones. She sits in the same chair, at the same table, at the same time of day, and she does them in pen. People ask her how she stays so sharp. They expect a secret, a supplement, some trick. She tells them it isn't magic. It's effort. A pencil, she says, gives you an escape. You can erase the wrong answers and pretend you didn't choose them. Ink doesn't let you do that. Ink makes you commit. It keeps you present. Even when you get it wrong, you stay with it. Some mornings she doesn't finish the puzzle. Some clues stump her completely. She leaves them blank and comes back later. But she shows up again the next day, pen in hand, ready to try. That idea stays with you because it applies to more than puzzles. Whether it's a conversation, a decision, or the changes that come with age, most of us want a pencil. Something we can erase. Something that lets us avoid the discomfort of effort, or admitting that things take more work now. But staying sharp isn't about pretending nothing has changed. It's about choosing ink anyway. Most of us have watched what happens when the mind begins to fade. It rarely arrives all at once. It comes quietly. A repeated question, a familiar place that suddenly feels unfamiliar, a look in someone's eyes that tells you they're working harder than they ever had to before just to stay present. What makes it unsettling is that many of the people who lose clarity were once the sharpest in the room, the ones who remembered everything, the ones everyone relied on. And then, slowly, the lights flickered. Ignoring that reality doesn't protect us. Understanding where we still have choice does. I remember a time when thinking felt effortless, when words came quickly, when memory felt automatic, when I didn't have to pause and search. Back then, I didn't think much about my mind at all. I just used it. Now, I notice it. I work with it. And that difference can feel like loss if I let it. Or it can feel like intention. Because effort isn't evidence of decline. It's evidence of care. I've noticed how easily people retire their minds before they retire their jobs. They stop learning, stop struggling, stop doing anything that makes them feel slow or awkward. But feeling slow, especially at first, isn't failure. It's engagement. Anything worth keeping requires resistance. Learning new things later in life is humbling. You forget steps. You lose patience faster than you used to. Your ego takes a hit. But that discomfort isn't decline, it's effort. The brain doesn't weaken because you struggle. It weakens when you stop. The same thing is true with people. Solitude can be nourishing, but too much quiet for too long does something subtle to the mind. I've had days where staying home felt easier, where cancelling plans felt justified, and sometimes it is. But I've also noticed how often showing up, when I didn't feel like it, ended up sharpening me in ways I didn't expect. A conversation that made me think. A disagreement that forced me to articulate what I actually believe. Connection doesn't have to be constant, but it does have to be intentional. Movement works the same way. It doesn't have to be impressive. A walk around the block, time in the garden, stretching in the morning while your joints complain. Movement isn't about conquering age. It's about cooperating with it. The people who keep moving, however slowly, tend to keep themselves longer. And there's dignity in that. Then there are the basics: sleep, food, routine. Not exciting, but powerful. The brain repairs itself during sleep, and when sleep becomes irregular, clarity follows. What you eat matters more than we like to admit. Real food supports focus. Processed food clouds it. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. And then there's purpose. This one took me a while to understand. There was a stretch of time when the days felt a little too open. Nothing wrong, nothing urgent. Just a dull sameness that crept in quietly. Without something that needed me, it became easier to drift. Purpose doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Someone who benefits from your presence. Something that depends on you showing up. A role that gives your day weight. When you're needed, your mind stays awake. So no, this isn't luck. It's choices. Small ones, daily ones. Challenging your brain. Staying connected. Moving your body. Respecting sleep and food. Having something that matters. Not because you're afraid, but because you want to stay here. Clear-eyed and present. For as long as you can. I want to be honest as we close. That fear I talked about earlier doesn't disappear. I still have moments where I pause, where I search for a word longer than I'd like. But now, instead of seeing those moments as proof that something is wrong, I see them as reminders to stay engaged. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. Truly. Time is precious, and the fact that you chose to spend some of yours here, reflecting alongside me, means a great deal. This space exists because of people who are still curious, still willing to look honestly at where they are, still choosing to stay awake to their own lives. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear from you. What's your version of ink? What's the small habit, the quiet routine, the simple choice that helps you stay steady and present these days? Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing, again today, to stay engaged with your life. I'll see you next time.